Steve Willis, what do you think of the WikiLeaks documents on Scientology? I've read some of the OT materials, and they seem legit and Hubbardian. However, as a never-in, I want to know if they are good sources in your eyes. And Jennifer Brewer, for your next video, what was your reaction on first reading the OT3 materials? Yeah, I believe that the OT materials on WikiLeaks and that you can find online are legit. They're written in Hubbard's handwriting, and there's enough documentation and there's bulletins and policy letters that some of which I've seen that are not confidential included in the packs, along with the confidential stuff. And it all definitely reads like Hubbard, and it sounds like, Hubbard, and it looks like, handwriting-wise, it certainly looks like Hubbard. I understand that the materials that are on the internet are from the 80s, and there have been some changes to the OT levels since that time in various revisions and whatnot. Little things, I think, for the most part. You can find the older OT levels, the original OT levels from the 60s and 70s, also on the internet. So you have two different sets of these things called OT levels. OT 1 and 2 and 3. 3 has always been 3. That's the Xenu story. But OT 1 and OT 2 have changed over time. And then there was 3 and 3X, and then it went to 7. And that's a whole little weird sequence that happened in the 1960s and 70s that was kind of put to the side. And now there's just OT 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I think they call them on the modern grade chart, I think they call them new OT 1, new OT 2. OT 3 has always been OT 3, and new OT 4 and that sort of thing. So I think that's how you could differentiate between them. Some of the information I know, like the L rundowns and some of the power stuff. There are levels called Power and Power Plus. I think those are predominantly put together by my memory of the people who were trained on them, who came out of Scientology and wrote it all down. So I don't know how accurate those things are, which is probably one reason why I haven't talked about those a lot. I've been asked about Power and Power Plus, and I've been asked about the L rundowns, but I'm not sure how legit what's on the internet is. And again, if any of you guys, I'm kind of soliciting for comments here, but if any of you guys know, whether they are spot on or not, let me know, because then I might grant them a little bit more legitimacy and talk about them a little bit more. I just haven't been sure, because I never did the OT levels, I never did the L's, and I never did Power. So, so all of my confirmation of these things comes from other people who did them. And that's where I wrote my chapter in my book about all the OT levels. I confirmed all of that information with people who had actually done the OT levels. I talked to a number of people on that line. Now, as far as my reaction to the OT3 materials, I'll just tell you straight up, I was pissed. I first found out about and was kind of stuck to the mystery of OT3 practically the first day I walked into an organization. I had been raised with Scientology, but I had never really knew too much about these confidential levels. My parents never really said much of anything about them, of course. My dad alluded to a couple weird sort of things about Mars and Venus and stuff like that, but never really came just flat out and said, here's the story, because he couldn't, because it was confidential. So the first day one of the first days I went into an organization after I got sold on Scientology and wanted to get going on it, one of the staff there gave me this Hubbard lecture called RJ67, Ron's Journal 67, which is his briefing in 1967 to all the public about OT3. And he doesn't tell you anything about Xenu. He doesn't tell you anything other than there was a great catastrophe that occurred here and amongst the planets of this federation, I think he calls them, or confederacy, 76 trillion years ago, or however many years ago it was, 75 million years ago, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And he says, in this place, this has been a desert ever since. And you go, wow, what was this big catastrophe? What happened? And people just kind of, within Scientology, just sort of smile at you and say, well, you'll find out when you get to OT3. And it's sort of this big mystery, right? And that's how OT3 is talked about in the Scientology world. So for 27 years, I never knew what this OT3 was all about. And it was, really, really interesting. Like, I wanted to know. So when I was going down the rabbit hole on the internet and finding out how horrible, Hubbard was and Miscavige and all that stuff, after I had left the Sea Org in 2013, I got to the point where I knew I didn't want to do Scientology anymore. I didn't want to have anything to do with this stuff anymore. It was a con, and I knew it. And that's when I went, let's see what all the excitement and fuss is about. And that's when I got the OT levels and I read them. And I was very upset because they were not logically consistent with the lower levels. The OT levels had a lot of information in them that left more questions than answers. I was expecting a lot of answers. And what I got was a lot of gobbledygook and a lot of illogical bullshit. And then the whole Xenu story leaves more questions than it does answers. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, it's all in my book. I'm not going to sit here and read the whole chapter to you because it's too long. There's a lot of inconsistencies and things that just don't make sense in those levels. And I didn't just read OT3. Of course, I went to that first. I watched South Park, then I read the actual material. Then I read all the OT material that I could find on the internet. And it just really pissed me off because I had really felt like, I had sold people these OT levels when I was in the Sea Org. I'd been stuck like glue to them for all those years, thinking that the secrets in the universe and the mysteries of life would be unraveled for me and everything would be answered. All my questions would be answered. Well, that's not anywhere close to what happened. And I was very, very disappointed that this was the big reveal in Scientology. So that was my reaction.